What's up guys, I am Kenny from Upscale Lures, and today I'm going to be showing you the basics of 3D printing your own fishing lures in 3 steps. Let's get started.
It's so cool. Got him. Hell yeah, look at that. That is a decent bass right there. There we go. There we go. That's a freaking fish right there. Woo-hoo! Dude, he inhaled that thing.
What I'm going to need from you guys while you're watching this video, when you have a question or comment about any part of the 3D printing process, make sure to leave a comment below. So that's going to help me make a better video next time. So for the next video, I can dive deeper onto specific details that you guys are interested about. With this video, I want to go with a more of a wide view of the whole process of 3D printing fishing lures. I'm not going to go into any great detail of any particular step. I want to give you more of a big picture kind of approach. Alright, so for step number 1, it is going to be what you are going to need, which is going to be broken down into a 3D printer, your filament, and fishing lure components. So we'll get started with the 3D printer. There is a ton of 3D printers out there nowadays, so it can be quite the task to figure out what printer you want, how big do you want the build plate, what kind of filament can it print, what's the build volume, how precise is it, how reliable is it. It can be quite the, could you say, excruciating task. Like when I first figured out like I could 3D print fishing lures, I know there was like no other option. Like I knew I was gonna get one, so I like just binged on how many YouTube videos and just trying to figure out the right 3D printer to get. And for the first one I got was the Monoprice Select Mini, and the version 2 just came out, so I was pretty excited about that. And you know, for the price, it works pretty good. It was under $200. Decent size build plate. I mean, for fishing lures, it's okay. Nowadays, this is a pretty, it's pretty small build plate, but it did get the job done. I mean, the majority of these lures right here actually were printed on this machine right here. Plus, with this printer, you did not have to assemble anything. It came fully assembled. With quite a bit of the other printers that you can buy, they're completely disassembled and you have to assemble them piece by piece. And I have not done that, but with that situation, you're going to get, I think you're going to get a better printer for a lower price because you had to assemble it. I can show you the experiences I had with these 3D printers, and that, you know, this one did work pretty good, you know, straight out of the box for a beginner. Great, you know, good price. The question comes down to, I always like to ask, is would I buy it again? And I guess I probably wouldn't. I think there's better options out there. For example, the Cetus 3D printer might be a better option. The price is a little bit more, so, you know, that's something else to consider. But, you know, this does get the job done. I guess the biggest thing is to do, you know, just do the research and try to figure out what qualities are you looking for in your 3D printer. You know, does the price, what's your price range? You know, what's the, you know, what quality you're looking for? So, you know, these are all things you need to consider while you're looking for a 3D printer. The price points currently for the Mark III runs $400 for the Mark III, and then you can also get the extended version, the taller version, for $500. And then the first one I bought was the Mark II, which you can currently now get at $300, which is a pretty good price, I would have to say. I believe the Cetus is, for the price, one of the best 3D printers you can get for the quality of prints that you get. One of the unique things about this printer is that it has the linear rails, which helps make it much more precise than many of the other printers that are out there. The other printers that are out there, what do they use? Actually, it's used on this one. I believe it's called like a screw lead. I'll put it on the screen what it's actually called. But it's basically a threaded piece of rod that is used. And the problem is that I think the rod, the rod can bend, so the quality's just not, it's good, but not as good as a linear rail. As you can see there, this is like machined, I'm assuming stainless steel, that you're going to get a much smoother and much more precise print. Another important factor was the bed plate size, or your build volume, which is the amount of space you have to 3D print your lure. As you can see with this one, it is definitely smaller. I'm trying to think of all the things that I wanted to print. Pretty much any fishing lure I wanted to print, I could make it happen with this printer, but I did want something a little bit bigger to kind of expand and have, I guess, greater potential with what I could print. And I have not showed this on camera yet. What I printed with this, I wanted to basically test the limits of how big I could make a lipless crankbait. So here is it is a 2-piece 3D printed lipless crankbait. I have not shown this on camera yet. I have not released the STL files yet. I wanted to show you guys the capabilities of the Cetus 3D printer, and I think it is quite impressive. This was, I forgot how many hours, it was well over a 30-hour print. As you can see, these would be two separate prints right here. So I would print them, face down here. It was it'd be printing from this end. So, 2 separate prints. I printed the hooks, the split rings, and the eyelets. So I had to say it turned out pretty good, and I was very happy with the results of this. I gotta get this thing painted. I think this thing will look amazing. So there's the basics between my 2 printers that I bought, my first one, and then moving on to the Cetus. And just like I asked the same question, would I buy another Cetus 3D printer? And actually I have 2 Cetus 3D printers, so I'd have to say yes, I would buy another one. They are good, they are amazing quality. I really do enjoy printing with them. They just overall, it is just a solid printer. There is a little bit of assembly when you get it. The rails like this is separated from the base. You have to put the build plate on, and I believe this is also separate here. So it's not like every single piece is disassembled. You just have to put the main components together to get it going. And I would have to say at most maybe an hour and a half to assemble everything. Then you do have to level the bed as well. So one more thing I want to add about this printer is that I was running this thing pretty hard. I was printing just a ton of lures. I was printing, giant lipless crankbaits, 30, 40 hour prints. And, that's, I guess you could say that's a lot of wear and tear on a machine. I did start having an issue actually with both of my Cetus 3D printers. This was after many spools of line that I did have this issue where I started getting this uneven layers, and I didn't know what was going on. Like, how can I fix this? I tried everything. I disassembled my machine. I put it back together. I re-leveled the bed. I was changing the print temperatures for the filament. And I'm like, what is going on? I do want to point out that Cetus has a really good support team that if you go on their website, you can type up your question, and majority of the time they'll get back to you right away. Otherwise, they'll email you. But they helped me out to problem solve my issue, to figure out what it was. And what it was the extruder it went bad. It would push out the plastic, and then it would randomly stop. It would push out the plastic, and then it would stop. So that's why you are getting these random, missing spots of plastic in your prints. And it was just driving me nuts. I couldn't figure out what it was. So I guess you could say that was a priceless, that was priceless to have that support team, that CETA support to help me figure out what the problem was with my 3D printer so I could get it up and running again. And I will point out that they sent me 2 brand new extruders to replace the old ones that they did go bad. So that, that was really, I mean, that's amazing that a company would do that, like I think there is, I don't know if it's kind of, there's either like a 3-month, or a 1-year warranty on these. I'm not sure exactly what, that covers. I seen both of them, so I'm not sure exactly how that works. I was still covered, I suppose. I guess I was still covered because they sent me 2 new extruders. One thing is they did not tell me they are sending me new extruders, and because I was kind of pinched for time and I needed to get some 3D prints done, I ended up buying 2 more extruders because they never told me they're sending me new ones. So that kind of threw me off. I couldn't just sit on my hands and wait like, hey, are they sending me, new extruders? And I think that some Chinese New Year was going on, so they didn't get back to me for a few days. So I mean that's totally understandable. But yeah, I had no idea that they were gonna send them to me, so I bought 2 more. So now I have 4 extruders sitting waiting. So I'm assuming these will probably fail again at some time, and they will need to be replaced. They do come out to 80. I think they are $80 a piece to replace. But I did get quite a bit of printing out of them before they did fail. Next, you're gonna need filament. I'm not gonna go into great detail on this, like I was saying, but the main filament that I'm gonna recommend for beginners and what I use is PLA plastic. It is a biodegradable plastic mainly made out of cornstarch or sugar cane, and it works very well. It's easy to print with. You have good bed adhesion that when you're printing, the print is actually sticking to the bed, because sometimes you'll get it where it starts peeling off. You'll have that problem with ABS, and that is definitely the way to go. I did start printing in the beginning with ABS because they said it was tougher and more strong. ABS is a petroleum-based filament, and you do need some very good ventilation when you're printing with that. It does throw off a smell that it don't smell good. It smells like a chemical, or don't smell like petroleum, but that's basically what it is. And it's not something you want to be filling your house with, that particular smell. And PLA plastic, that basically doesn't have a smell. Maybe a slight one, but I don't think you have to worry about ventilation as much. I still think you do want ventilation, but you're not going to have just that nasty smell filling your house or wherever you may be printing. So PLA, definitely the way to go. The biggest reason that I kind of fought with this for a while was that PLA has a low melting temperature. From what I know, PLA starts to soften at 140 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty low. So if that's sitting in a hot car in the summer, or maybe an attic or wherever you store your lures, those lures could start to soften. So that was my biggest issue, was like, how are you going to, make a lure 3D printed, have it painted, stick some money and time into it, and then all of a sudden it just melts. But overall, I've decided that I think it is the way to go with PLA because it is biodegradable. I love that factor. That that's a step in the right direction. You're polluting the lakes and rivers. Your waters weighs less when you do lose a lure. That's inevitable. That it will break down. I think that's awesome. I haven't had any issues yet with the PLA softening at all. I did go to Florida this past December, and it was 90 degrees, and surprisingly, I did have lures in the truck, and I didn't notice it get soft at all. So I guess that's just the risk you're going to kind of have to take with that. You know, kind of weigh out the pros and cons. I guess the main thing is just to be aware that PLA plastic has that low melting temp. With ABS plastic, you do need a heated bed, which the Monoprice does have a heated bed. The Cetus does not come standard with one. You would have to buy one separate. But what I found out is you need, what I did to print ABS is put a container over it, because you need to keep a constant hotter temperature for the ABS to keep good layer adhesion. Otherwise, it starts peeling off. You know, it really can be a pain in the ass to print ABS. And I started printing a little bit of ABS with the Cetus. I was putting a container over it to keep that keep the temperature up. And these, if you guys can see this, some of these pieces are actually 3D printed. I'm pretty sure they're out of PLA, and they started to warp. So after that, I'm like, all right, I can't do it. I'm not going to, you know, warp this whole machine trying to print with ABS. So overall, PLA, it just won out for me. Biodegradable, it prints easy, it has low fumes, you know, just 2 thumbs up with that. It works really well. So the next thing with filament is that they call them exotic filaments, and nowadays there is quite a bit of options of your exotic filaments, and I'm sure they're going to come out with more and more. And you know, it's just amazing all the stuff they have. We can start on the bottom, which is a UV. It is a UV filament that once it hits the sunlight, this one, let's see here. Oh, it doesn't actually say, but it's UV color change PLA. I think this is the blue one. So once you put out in the sunlight or a black light, it will turn blue, which is really cool element while you're fishing it with a fishing lure, as a fishing lure. This one is just a marble color, so you got like white with black fleck. Good for, you know, good, I think, fishing lure color. Let's see here. This is the Illusion Blue, which, again, it's a UV blue, but without the UV light is like a sparkle clear color, which will turn blue as soon as you get UV light on it. Then this one is Galaxy Series Lush Green. Yeah, that just looks good right there. This one is heat activated. I think it's about 90 degrees. It'll turn more of a lighter, kind of a chartreuse color. So this ain't, you know, if you're out fishing in 50-degree water, you're not going to see any change, you know. So this would be for more either summertime or more of a southern state, you know, or wherever you may be fishing, to be more of a hotter temp filament to use. And then the last one that I have, well, actually I got another one down there. I'll show you. This one right here is a clear with like a copper gold sparkle. Looks really good. And this one is also glow in the dark. I love how you have, you know, that you can have that daytime color, and then it gets into evening. You can charge this thing up and it'll glow in the dark. And I did pretty good with this. I caught some fish with this one, and I think the glow in the dark does help. And, you know, that nice sparkle really, that's going to really stand out in the water. And then the other, I would have to say this would be another exotic filament. If you guys haven't heard, they do have a wood PLA. This has, I think it was like up to 30% like wood in it. So it is PLA and wood. It is sandable. When you're printing it, it smells like wood. It's pretty amazing. I did notice that it is more brittle than regular PLA. I have to do more printing with it to better fine tune it. You know, depending on what temperature you're printing this stuff at, you will get different results. So yeah, more testing needed with the wood PLA. You're also going to need some fishing lure components, some hooks, which would be some treble hooks. You do also do some worm hooks. What is also nice about that is you can kind of decide what quality of hooks you want to use, lower quality, cheaper price, or do you want to spend a little more money, get some quality hooks for it. that may last longer, may not rust out on you, completely up to you. And you're also going to need some split rings, some screw eyes, and then more likely than not, you're going to need some sort of weight, which I've been using some split shots. You got a whole assortment of different sizes here. And also, I did actually use BBs on the adjustable crankbait, which also work pretty well because they're they're all a consistent size, which works a little bit better for that particular lure. So now you have a 3D printer, you have filament, and you have an assortment of fishing lure components. We're going to move on to step number 2, which is going to be getting your 3D printer ready for printing and then actually printing your 3D printed lures. Depending on what printer you got, you may have to assemble it. Like the Cetus, it comes in 3 or 4 pieces. You have to put some bolts in, pretty easy. Or if you get this one, completely ready to go, out of the box, assembled just like that. Or if you get, say, I think like the Ender 3, that is completely into separate pieces that you would have to assemble, which would take some time to get that ready to go. Okay, now you have your 3D printer fully assembled. The next step is going to be leveling the bed, and depending on what printer you have, there is different ways of doing it. And what bed leveling is basically telling the machine that where the nozzle is, where the plastic is going to be coming out of, that it knows where the surface of your bed is, so it's not smashing right into the bed where you're going to damage the nozzle, and you can also damage the surface of the build plate. With the Monoprice Select Mini, you would adjust the bed height with these Allen wrench screws. So the nozzle would run basically a width of a sheet of paper over the whole bed. So you were manually kind of adjusting these so you would get it level. For the Cetus 3D printer, the bed is not adjustable. Basically, you are going to touch off a piece of paper like this, and you're going to touch it off with the nozzle on separate points of the bed, which you would then enter into the Cetus slicer, which is going to allow it to adjust so it knows how level the bed is, which allows you for a more uniform print. The next thing you're going to need is an STL file to put on the 3D printer. One of the most popular websites is Thingiverse. There is a ton of free STL files there, just a ton of different designs. Recommend going there, exploring, see what you can find. Ton of different stuff. So if you go to Thingiverse, you can search fishing lures. And you have quite the array of options. As you guys can see here, I have quite a few fishing lures. All these are 3D printed, and not all of these are mine. This one is not mine, the 3D printed lipless crankbait. I got the top water style whopper plopper, glide baits, some lip crankbaits. I got some top water. I'm not sure if you can even see those. I got some bobbers. All those, not my design. But every single one of these, I do have videos where I do 3D print these up and I basically test them out. I review them, how good they work, how good they swim, do they catch fish. So if you guys want to, get some ideas, what lures to print, what ones that would be best for you to try out first, you guys can check out all the review videos for this. I do have a whole series of all these 3D printed videos together on YouTube. Now I'll show you the process of actually getting your STL file and then being able to put it onto your 3D printer. So let's say you want to be a little bit more specific with it. You want a lipless crankbait. So go to thingiverse.com and search lipless crankbait. What you want to do is download the file. Then you bring that file into your slicer, which is going to allow you to put the fine detail into your print. So for example, like you can adjust the layer height. A smaller layer height is going to give you a higher quality print. Like a smaller print or a smaller layer is going to give you more layers, so it's going to be more detailed, but it is going to take longer to print. Like if you go to 0.15, you're going to get a pretty good quality print. If I'm looking for a faster print and I don't need the quality as much, I can go to a 0.2 and you're gonna knock off some of that print time. Next is the support and raft. I'll give you guys a quick rundown of what a raft is. Basically, that's a couple layers of the PLA plastic or whatever you're printing with that the print is going to be printed on. And then support is if you have a overhang, it is going to slowly build up some extra plastic to support that overhang, so you don't get drooping plastic. And you know, there's basically at certain points where you have that overhang, the 3D printer would be printing in the air, you know, depending on how steep that overhang is. So that's why you would use support. Next would be the temperature you're going to want to print your filament at. Let's see here. I use the Amazon Basics PLA, which works pretty good, and the price is not bad. All right, so they're saying for this filament it is 190 degrees Celsius to 220 degrees Celsius. So the biggest tip I can give you with this is you're going to have to test it out and see what works best for you. Because even depending on what printer you use, how hot it is in the room, you know, just the temperature that you're printing in. I even noticed when I switched out the extruders I was talking about, it seemed like I ended up I had to print them at a higher temperature after that. I was printing them at 190 degrees Celsius, and that was like the sweet spot where, you know, good bed adhesion and the prints were just coming out, whew, they were coming out really good. I switched out the extruders and it wasn't working so well, so I tested it out and I jumped the degrees by 5 and I fine-tuned it to about 105 degrees Celsius, and then it seemed to get back to the same quality. Another thing to point out is that depending on the temperature you print them at, it seems like the hotter the temperature you print them at, the harder it is to break off that support, like it bonds to it better. So that, you know, that's something to note. The best piece of advice I can give you for 3D printing your first fishing lure is just to be ready to have things go wrong, because when you're doing something new for the first time, there is a huge learning curve. So patience is going to be your best friend, you know, so you're not you know, losing your temper, and you know, so you keep a clear mind. When you have that clear mind when you're doing something new like this, it's going to help you go farther, so you can take the right steps and learn what you need to learn to print your first 3D printed fishing lure. Congratulations, you got your first 3D printed fishing lure completed. Now we are moving on to step number 3, which is assembly. And I do have videos where I go through the whole process. This is the 2-inch lipless crankbait. I will link the videos, and it goes into basically all the details, so you can assemble this down to putting in the eyelets, putting in the weights, and the split rings. And the next one is the adjustable adjustable depth lipless crankbaits, and I do have another assembly video for that. So if you do check out these videos, it will give you a basic understanding of how to, you know, almost assemble any other fishing lure. The majority of the lures that are on Thingiverse, like the other lipless crankbaits, or say these Whopper Plopper style lures. They are going to give you the assembly instructions on their webpage. So we're gonna swing back here for a second. Before you assemble these, if you are looking to get these painted and kind of step up the detail a notch on your 3D printed lures, you can get these painted, of course, and they turned out really well. I can't paint very well. I've tried. I just found a lure painter on Facebook, and this guy does a fantastic job with these things. I got some of my lipless crankbaits painted, and I couldn't be happier with them. They turned out great. You know, you can find somebody, you know, that does your style of painting, and you know, I don't know, $4, $5, $6 a lure, and you can get these painted. And you know, I mean, you're stepping up these lures, and they're gonna look professional. They look really good. On the flip side of that, I was calling it the print and fish, where you would basically just 3D print your lure and then you would assemble it. And I still had great luck with these, where you have, you know, like a gray or a white or a black. It's still, you know, a pretty natural color. And actually the first fish I caught was off a blue lipless crankbait. I caught the redfish that was in Florida. So, you know, does the colors matter? Do you want to put in the extra time and detail to get them painted? Do you want to spend the money? You know, that's up to you. That's up to you to decide. Now you have a fully assembled 3D printed fishing lure. You either got it painted or you're gonna go with the old printed fish. Both ways will work, you know. That's completely your call. So now you can go out, get these on the water, see how they work, and hopefully catch some fish with these things. I would have to say the next step would be, you know, depending on what lure you're printing with, you know, a lot of the lures that I got off Thingiverse, there was some tweaking involved. Not all of them are completely finished or fine-tuned, so there is going to be maybe some adjustments you're gonna have to make with these. You know, it's not like you're printing off a Rapala lure, or, you know, obviously a lure that they have put, you know, who knows how much time and effort and money into it to get it, you know, to get it just right. Obviously, this is somebody else's, you know, maybe a side project or something, and these might need some tweaking. For example, like this lure right here, I had to switch out where the eyelets were because it wasn't swimming right. I was having more of a surface bait where it was supposed to be diving. And then next was this other one, the bigger lip crankbait, which you did have to fine tune the crankbait.
All right, so it's swimming to the right, swimming that way. So I need to bend it a bit left.
Otherwise, it would do this weird like side wobble. It would come to the surface. So you did have to tune it, which I do actually have a video with these lures and how I tuned it, where you got to adjust it left or right to make it swim so it's diving down. Next was the glide bait. This had to be one of my favorite lures to print and test out. I do have a video for this one too. I can leave that in the links below. With this one, I did have to add a little bit of weight.
Got these little weights here, using for another project, and I'm gonna try to add it on to the split ring right here and see if that helps with it sinking down just a little bit.
There's other ways you could you know, tweak or adjust this. You know, you could drill a hole in this and then actually put your weight in there, or a couple split shots like I was saying. You just kind of need to be prepared that not all these lures that you get off Thingiverse are going to you know, work straight out of the, I was gonna say straight out of the box, but straight out of your print. You know, they may need some tweaking to you know, to be finely tuned so they swim correctly. The whole 3D printing fishing lures thing, I think, is so amazing because you can tweak them and you can customize your lures to your personal preferences. Like you kind of have like a one-up on, you know, someone buys a Rapala, and you know, it is what it is. You have the weight, you have the hooks, and you have, you know, the set colors or whatever. But when you 3D print your own, you can adjust that weight. You can print whatever colors you want. You can switch out the quality hooks. Your level of customization is like 10x. You know, you can just do so much more with these lures. And you know, that's the best thing about 3D printed fishing lures, is that you can adjust these to your specific way and type of fishing, and I really think that's going to give you a edge on the water. Alright guys, I think that was everything. If I missed anything, like I said in the beginning of this video, please leave comments, please leave questions of anything you may have about this whole process. You know, like I said, I was going for the big overview picture just to give you a generalization of how to just begin 3D printing your own fishing lures, and just get into the whole, you know, world of what you can do with 3D printing and customizing your 3D printed fishing lures. I hope you guys really enjoyed this. I appreciate every single view, every single time you guys subscribe, and if you would like to help support my channel, please subscribe. That would be amazing. And then you guys can know when I come out with my next video, which I put out a new video every single week. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.